mentioned, I'm on the other side of the table now because I used to participate when I was a student here at U of T in these sessions, and it's different to actually be the presenter, but it's lovely. It brings back those memories. And I also wanted to add that it's about a year ago that I did my oral defense at U of T. Now I know there's probably a few students in the room, maybe? No students in the room. Okay. Are there any faculty members in the room? I'm just trying to get a sense for who I have today. Are some people here because they're very interested in retirement or volunteering, or both, the intersection of both, or just interested in generally in the issues? Just generally in the issues?
Both in a month. Both in a month.
And that would be a month's time because?
I'm retired in January.
Okay,
wow.
All right. So we have an on the cusp retiree in the room. That's wonderful. I think you'll really, what we're talking about, the themes we're talking about today will really resonate with you because it's personally compelling and interesting, and it's also compelling and interesting at a societal level, these issues. So while I'm sharing my research, I want you to think about someone who, people that you know that are dealing with volunteering and retirement, and see how my model resonates with your experiences and your knowledge. So I'm going to be talking about redirection, volunteering during retirement, and I'm going to share some literature, an introduction to the topic, and then I'm going to be sharing actually results from two different studies, from my PhD research, as well as from the Bravo project that I'm doing at Baycrest, because there's themes, my key themes carry across both studies. So I'm going to share a little bit about that, and then also share the implications at the societal level for healthy aging and successful aging. So first, at the societal level, this is important and compelling on the societal level for many reasons. And first of all, because there's a huge need for volunteers in our communities and within society. There are an estimated 161,000 incorporated nonprofits in Canada, and many of them rely on volunteers for their sustainability. It's really important, just for their sustainability. They do a lot of the work along with the paid staff, but the volunteers are critically important, as all of you who work with volunteers know. And when we look at the older volunteers, age 65 plus, 36% of them volunteer. This is from a national study, the Canadian study for giving, volunteering and participating. And the older volunteers also tend to contribute the most volunteer hours to nonprofit organizations. So they're giving a lot of their time to volunteering. And the research consistently shows that women tend to volunteer more often than men. And also more highly educated people tend to volunteer. So a lot of professionals volunteer in the community, and they tend to bring in their skills, their high skills to the position. And at the societal level, again, this is important because of our population aging. And there's a huge number of baby boomers who are on the cusp of retirement, like the person we have here in the audience. And so it's really important because we've got a lot of people who are on the cusp of retiring who are going to be looking for what comes next. And some of them will have volunteered earlier in their lives, but some of them haven't, right? So we've got some that have volunteered, some that haven't, and they're all going to be wondering what comes next during their retirement. So a lot of research has looked at the motivations for why people volunteer. But it's also important to look at the benefits of volunteering. So this particular research by Van Brick and Bondar looked at the benefits of all types of productive activity, not just volunteering, but also caregiving, informal help to others, home maintenance, and paid work. So all different types of productive activity during retirement. And the themes in this is a qualitative study, and the themes are that the productive activity, all kinds of productive activity, leads to life satisfaction and successful aging through contributing to people's sense of concept, their self-worth. It really gives a lot back to their sense of self. also giving back to community. They feel like they're contributing, and they're also staying engaged and active. So on all those levels, it's very important for healthy and successful aging. And increasingly in society, people want to be engaged and active during their retirement. I heard that a lot from my participants in my study. They really wanted to have a different retirement from the retirement that they viewed their parents having. And this comes through in the research that people are challenging limits on their capacities and full potential in the later years. They're rejecting the stereotypes. They want to be active and engaged and participate in the community and civic duties. And they see that there's that need in nonprofit organizations to provide services. So they want to be engaged in the purposeful activity and be active and actually contribute to social change, changing stereotypes and creating new role models of healthy aging. And it's also very important for them to maintain those community ties and have that a broad social circle and be connected to others. In my work, I was wondering about these on-the-cusp baby boomers who were going to be retiring. And I was, at the time, when I was trying to decide what to do my PhD study on, just before that I had been teaching at the University of Guelph full-time, and I was supervising some placement students who were out in the community helping nonprofits, volunteering at nonprofits. And I saw that there were also a lot of older adults who were also volunteering in these agencies in the community. And so I was kind of wondering, if baby boomers do volunteer, are they going to want to remain in their comfort zone and use their skills and their knowledge from their previous paid work? Or will they want to do something completely new and step out and just embrace new learning, lifelong learning, new experiences? And that's how I thought of my work. And that was the overall arching question. So whether or not they would stay in their comfort zone or do something completely different. So because I was looking at skills and previous paid work, I decided to use a theory of career development in my work. And the one I chose is Donald Super's Lifespan, Lifespace Theory of Career Development, which is a very long mouthful to say every time I refer to this theory. So I just call it Super's theory because he developed it over a period of 50 years, and he did have collaborators who worked on the research with him, but he was the father of this theory, okay? So I call it Super's theory. And he focused mostly on the career development for younger people, for youth. And he didn't really look at the later stages of life that much. And so there was a great big gap. So that was lovely for a doctoral student to work within. So in his theory, he outlines several stages, and here they are: growth, exploration, establishment, maintenance, and disengagement. And within each of these stages, he has 3 tasks that he outlines that people go through as they develop their career, they're enter the work world and they're working, and then as they go through the different stages. And disengagement is his last stage, and that's just when people are becoming disengaged from their career, from their paid work. But he didn't really have a lot to say about it, as I mentioned. His theory combines elements of psychology and sociology. And it also, because it looks across the life course, it's very much related to the life course perspective. So I was very comfortable as a gerontologist to use this theory in my work. He looked at several different roles, and I modified his theory slightly. So he talked about the student role, because again, he was focusing on the younger people, and I've changed that to a learner role in my work. He talked about pensioners. I've changed that to, I think I messed up the slide here. Anyways, I changed it to retiree. I talked about retirees in my work. And then he talked about homemakers, and I changed that to embrace all family roles, because across the life course we're engaged in being siblings and children and parents and all the different types of life roles. So I looked at all of those roles. And he also talked about, as I said, this evolution of career development across the life course, which really relates to your sense of self and your career self concept which he separated out in his research and his theory, to look at how the career self evolves over time. And I was really interested to see how this happened in retirement, right? If people were using their skills and their knowledge as they did their volunteer activities and within their volunteer roles, that was very exciting for me, because that would indicate that they had continuity of career within retirement. Okay? So I was really interested, as I said, in skills, abilities, knowledge, and the career self-concept during retirement. And I focused my research questions on those areas. I want to pick up the theme about learning again. And very little research has been conducted on learning in volunteering. So again, there was a great big opening for me to look at in more detail. So for example, in that Canadian survey that I mentioned earlier, the 3 top reasons for volunteering were to make a contribution to the community, to use skills and experience, and being affected by an organization's cause. But the tendency was to think about learning in regard to younger people. So I asked, are retirees open to learning? And the other question I wanted to know is, did they have specific learning goals and objectives that they wanted to accomplish within their volunteer roles? And then to get at the theme of skills, are they using their previous paid work skills and abilities in their volunteer work? So I did a mixed method study. I started out by speaking with 12 retirees who are volunteering in Southern Ontario, and I saw them as key informants, and I used my conversations with them, I interviewed them, to help me develop my survey instrument. And I had lovely key informants who really helped me a lot, and then I did phase 2 of my survey, which was this broader survey out across Canada. And I had 214 respondents to that survey. The criteria for participation were that people had to be between the ages of 55 and 75, retired in the last 10 years, and volunteering 3 hours per week. So I wanted people who were committed and dedicated to their volunteer activities, who I connected with. And again, consistent with other findings in the volunteer literature, most of my respondents were women, so 57% female, 43% male. Most of them were married or living common law, and I did connect with people from coast to coast to coast. About a third of them were immigrants, and 8% stated that they were diverse, members of diverse ethnocultural groups. A lot of them were educated. Most of my participants had university degrees. Some of them had college diplomas. Some of them had retired and then found some other form of work, whether they started a new business or did something else. They wanted to, when they explained the reasons that they had found other work, some of them had said it was to make ends meet. And some of them said they wanted the extra mental stimulation that came from having paid work. I conducted an openness to learning measurement, an index, and all my participants scored really, really high on this. The mean was 4.61 out of a possible score of 5. So they were really interested in learning new things. They really wanted to learn, they were curious, and really wanted to embrace learning, and they said they were really interested in lifelong learning. Some of the goals that they mentioned a range of things, everything from computer skills to learning about working with diverse populations in their volunteer activities. The first respondent here, the quote, mentions that he wants to learn about improving systems. So obviously he's like an organizational systems procedural thinker, and that's what really interests him within the volunteer organization. And the second respondent here is in healthcare, volunteering within healthcare, and really interested in how healthcare works so that she has a better understanding of the healthcare system and how to support clients in palliative care. In my study, I also saw evidence of learning about yourself through volunteer activities. And I was really excited to see this theme, so that people are growing and developing from their volunteer activities, learning about yourself and through interactions with those around you. Again, getting back to skills, the theme of skills, when I looked at the different skill sets and compared previous paid work to their volunteer activities, they had transferred their skills into their volunteer activities, and the chi-square test of independence were significant across all the skill sets. And the top 10 skills that they were using in their volunteer activities were leadership. Leadership was mostly related to being on a board of directors of a nonprofit organization, and teaching and educating, training, mentoring, organizational skills, public speaking skills, program development, serving others through direct service, management, and analysis. Now, they also shared with me some of the skills that they wanted to use, but they weren't able to in their volunteer activities. And the ones that they mentioned were leadership, because they were looking for other outlets besides just the board of directors, management, and creativity. So this leads to my addition to super theory, and I've called it Redirection, and it's based on the experiences of the participants in my study, and based on how they're using their skills and knowledge and their sense of self that I haven't shared any quotes from my study today on, but there was definitely a transfer of themselves into their volunteer activities. So redirection starts with a crisis, and the crisis is the act of retiring. And then, consistent with Super's theory, I've outlined 3 tasks within redirection, and I've got some quotes to illustrate this for you. So the first task is redefinition, and then renewal, and then integration. So here's a quote about the crisis, and I'll read it out to you. I really felt that I had lost my identity. My profession gave me my identity. Once I stopped working, I truly wondered who I was. I was shocked by this, as I didn't know that it would happen. I wish I had been warned, but in retrospect, perhaps a warning wouldn't have been sufficient. So the next task is redefinition. So because of the loss of the work role, they're forced to redefine themselves. And here you can see in the quote, there's evidence of still a little bit of that shock, that crisis that they're in, but now they're moving into recognizing that they need to redefine themselves beyond their paid work. So this person, she still sees herself as a driven, detail-oriented workaholic, but now that work has ended, where does that energy go? Where, what part of herself is left, and how does that get transformed? So here's the renewal task. And here, lots of exploration leads to this sense of renewal and fulfillment and new meaning that comes through the volunteer activities. So I'll read this one as well. My sense of self as a mother and career person was slowly disappearing, and I began to feel insecure and small as I wondered how and where I would find fulfillment for the rest of my days. I did a great deal of exploring and joining to discover who I had become at this stage. Soon I realized what and where I wanted to be, and made decisions in the direction of satisfaction. So I think this is a really beautiful quote as she explains the process, the psychological process that she went through. And the last task is the integration task. And this is how people pull it all together and find this new sense of self. So a new me is created. For many of us, our identity during the working years came from our family and our jobs. With retirement, we lost that bit around the jobs, and volunteering helped to fill the gap. But as time progressed, the gap disappeared, and our identity came more to rest as just plain me. I find it surprising to some extent that in conversation with new people I meet, I very seldom ever refer to my retired profession of social work. Some of my participants mentioned that they have a new label for themselves, and they call themselves a full-time volunteer or a professional volunteer, because that's how much their volunteer role is contributing to their new sense of self, their new identity, and how they've integrated it into their new me. So to summarize my doctoral study, this portion of my presentation, I just wanted to summarize that learning and continuity of career occur for these adults age 55 plus, and there is evidence that they are using those previous paid work skills, although some of them did say that there's some other skills that they wanted to use but haven't found an outlet for those yet. And it's consistent with Super's theory, which has learning as well as the other roles going on across the life course. So again, the tasks are redefinition, renewal, and integration. So currently, as Susan mentioned, I am at Baycrest, and I'm working as a postdoctoral fellow on the Bravo project. And Bravo stands for Baycrest Research about Volunteering Among Older Adults. And we're looking at the health benefits of volunteering. We are actually still recruiting for this study. We are looking for 200 people to participate. And the criteria for this study are that people have to be retired, age 55 plus, and not currently working or volunteering elsewhere more than 3 hours a month. So if you think of friends or family members that might be interested in this study, being involved in the study, and volunteering at Baycrest, then please see me and I'll give you a business card so you can contact the Volunteer Services Director.
So they can't be volunteering more than 3 hours a month?
They can't be volunteering elsewhere more than 3 hours a month because we are doing a baseline measurement, because we're looking at the health benefits of volunteering in this study. So here are the research objectives. We're looking at the cognitive, physical, and psychosocial health benefits of volunteering. And we're comparing that to the volunteer complexity, the volunteer role complexity across positions. And they need to do the volunteering at Baycrest because of the control that we have over the types of positions, and we've already analyzed the complexity of all the positions in advance. So we are recruiting 200 participants, and we do the baseline measurement before they start volunteering, and then we're testing them again at 6 months into volunteering, and then finally at 12 months into volunteering. So they need to make a 1-year commitment to volunteering at Baycrest. So it's a huge study. Here's the slide that shows our Bravo team, and it's a really unique research project for several reasons. The first of which is that it's interdisciplinary, and it is incorporating both research as well as a practitioner viewpoint in the study. So we have the Volunteer Services Director, Cyril Bernstein, who is helping to oversee the study. And really, it's a partnership between her and the principal investigator, Dr. Nicole Anderson, who Susan also mentioned earlier. And the research team is interdisciplinary, and all the people in blue, all the names in blue, are actually volunteers. They're actually volunteers age 55 plus who are helping to collect data and helping to oversee the project. So it's a very exciting study, and there's a lot of people involved, as you can see. And my role in it is that I'm involved with the qualitative interviews. So I oversee the qualitative interview team, the volunteers who are helping to collect the interview data. So they're actually conducting the interviews. So I manage that team, and then I'm coding the data and analyzing it. Okay, so here's a summary of the testing that we're doing. So we're doing quantitative testing, so we're actually measuring the physical, cognitive, and psychosocial aspects of volunteering. So some of the physical measurements that we're doing are a grip test, because hand strength is indicative of strength across the body, different parts of the body. And we're having them do a mobility test, a walking test. So some really, really interesting quantitative measurements that we're taking for this study. And then we have self-report measures on all the different areas across physical, cognitive, and psychosocial measures. And then the qualitative interviews are asking people questions on those benefits that they're perceiving themselves. So here's some of the Bravo team senior leadership volunteers, the ones who are helping us to collect the data and oversee the study. It's a big team, there's 30 of them. And some of the, as I mentioned, some of the Bravo findings, we haven't finished the study obviously, we're still recruiting. We're about halfway through. But some of the preliminary findings I want to just share with you that show some of the key themes. So we're asking, as I said, about benefits, motivation. There is that strong connection to healthy aging and broader issues at the societal level. And then we're very interested in the implications for volunteer management. So if any of you work with volunteers, there are implications for the engagement, recruitment, and retention of volunteers. So for the qualitative sample, at baseline, we want to do 50 interviews, but we've completed 35 so far. And some of the demographics, the people who we interviewed are aged 57 to 86 years. Again, they tend to have high levels of education. Again, mostly women. And there is some income range and range in the different languages that they speak. So the question here is, what would stimulate your thinking while volunteering? And this is anticipated benefits again, right? This was a baseline interview. So you can see that the first participant, she is really, really keen on learning. Again, this learning theme. And it's lovely to see the energy that she seems to get from learning. And then the second participant, the male, who's much less verbose, but he truly does see that, you know, if you're cognitively stimulated, that's great. You know, it can't hurt your brain to be cognitively stimulated through volunteering, right? So, because of my interest in learning, and also there's a number of other people on the team who are very interested in learning, including Sorella Bernstein, the Volunteer Services Director. We've added at the 6 and 12 month interviews some additional questions on learning to really explore that in much more detail, including the last question, which relates to retention of volunteers. And question number 3 I want to highlight is related to that whole that self-reflective learning about yourself that I mentioned earlier too. So with the 6-month interviews, we've only completed a few of those, and this theme of redirection is evident in some of these 6-month interviews, and I just wanted to share one quote. This particular volunteer, she, at the 6-month interview, she came in and explained that she'd made this connection with the head of audiology. And this had happened because she had been walking past the arts and crafts room and had seen someone that she recognized and had gone in to say hello. And so this volunteer was engaged in talking, and then realized the person she was talking to couldn't hear because her hearing aid wasn't working properly. And that was her previous job, right? That's what she had done as her previous job. She knew all about hearing aids, and so she had asked this person who she knew, she said, can I help you with your hearing aid? And so she fixed it, and immediately this person was like, I can hear again. This is really important. And the people who were running the program were like, you have this skill? Like, we probably got 5 other people in the room that probably need their hearing aids adjusted. And, you know, like, and so that's what prompted her to go and see the head of audiology and say, you know, I've got this skill, you know, do you need me? Like, should we set up a program? So it was through this, you know, serendipity, really, that she realized that her skills were really needed. And she was very excited at the 6-month interview because she was just about to start doing volunteering, creating this new position so that she could help people with her particular skill, because no one else had ever come with this skill as a volunteer and said, you know, I can help. So it was wonderful to see this happening, this process of where she's found her new direction, and it is really contributing to her sense of self. She's now completed the 12-month interview as well. And it comes across as being so important to her self-worth and her self-concept that she's able to continue using this skill in her volunteer work and help other people. So it's so refreshing and inspiring to see. So the next steps, I've just submitted some grant applications to study the 30 leadership volunteers age 55 plus who are helping us to oversee the study and collect the data, because again, they're using their skills and their knowledge, and they're at the same time they're learning new things through their volunteer activities, and I want to study their experiences in more depth, in more detail, and really get a sense of their experiences as senior leadership volunteers. And because it's so unique that they're involved in the study on such a high level, and partners in the study. And it also speaks to healthy aging, and the themes of advocacy and breaking stereotypes. So there are social implications for my work, it's really important given the baby boomers that we have on the cusp of retirement, and that we need to provide these adults age 55 plus who are highly skilled and highly educated some meaningful volunteer work. So can roles be developed that are challenging? Can their high level skills, like their management and leadership skills, be used? Is it possible maybe that we could just be more flexible with their volunteer roles so that they can use their skills and enable lifelong learning, really meaningful positions? So again, with population aging, these are things that we need to think about, and they'll become increasingly important for society, for healthy aging, these themes of skill use and learning. So how much intellectual stimulation is necessary? If retirees are being underutilized, are they going to gain the full potential benefits of volunteering that we're studying in the Bravo project, right? Because the preliminary findings are that role complexity is important. Volunteer role complexity is important. So we don't want them to be underutilized. And after retirement, is there a critical time for cognitive stimulation and learning? And how can we maximize older adults' learning potential? So the themes of healthy aging, I think, really come through in volunteering. The themes of learning, contributing, being active, engaged, so that you feel worthwhile. That sense of self and self-worth are so important. And it's holistic aging, right? From mental, psychological, physical, social, and spiritual elements. I want to just mention that because we have an aging population, we do have lots of role models of healthy aging. And I feel like I have a lot of role models of healthy aging because I'm always working around these older volunteers on the Bravo study. But there's a really important personal role model that I have in my life, and that's my grandfather. So I wanted to share with everyone that my grandfather just turned 99 last month. So healthy aging is really important for me and my family. He's an incredible role model, and he keeps physically active, and he was also volunteering until relatively recently. He's just recently given up his volunteering, but it's wonderful to see these role models of healthy aging around us. So I just want to acknowledge the funding for my research from the Ontario Research Coalition. I received the Early Researcher Award, received money from the Social Economy Centre, from the Institute of Nonprofit Studies at Mount Royal University, from my association that looks at nonprofit organization and voluntary action research, and then a special thank you to my supervisor and of course the Bravo team and my participants. So thank you so much for listening, and we do have time for questions. I don't know if anyone has any burning questions. Yes?
How did you get the participants for your first study?
How did I get them? That's a really good question. For the survey or for the case study? Or both?
For both.
Oh, for both. Okay. So the case study, I used snowball sampling for that. So I really just sent out word through everybody that I knew, and I had, as I mentioned, I was connected to some nonprofits in the community because of my previous work at the University of Guelph, and then also through the Social Economy Center. It's a network of researchers who are looking at all aspects of the social economy, including nonprofits. So I had a network within Southern Ontario. So I just sent out word, and I got 12 people who completed the case study with me. But I had more people actually contacting me after I felt I didn't need to do any more interviews, because people were very interested in talking to me about their experiences. And then for the survey that went out across Canada, I sent out word again through the nonprofit organizations via the Volunteer Bureau, the Canadian Volunteer Bureau, and so they sent out my letter asking for volunteers to all the nonprofit organizations affiliated with them. So that worked out really well. I wanted to get 200 respondents, and I got 214 who completed the survey. And what was interesting about that experience is that I had someone in the north of Canada, because I had respondents from the Yukon and from the Northwest Territories. Someone put an advertisement about my survey in the local newspapers. Yeah, which I didn't expect. And then also I sent out the invitation to Quebec too, right, to my social economy contacts in Quebec. And some volunteer translated my invitation letter into French so that I could try to connect with, I didn't have the money to translate, obviously as a doctoral student, to translate my questionnaire and my letter of invitation into French. But someone did that for me, and it was completely unexpected. So I had lots of really neat things happen when I was doing this study.
Was there much diversity among the types of volunteer roles in the survey?
I asked them what types of work they were doing, and I don't have that breakdown here, but there was a mixture. Some of them were doing direct service, some of them were on boards of director, some of them were doing fundraising, administrative roles, like a whole range of positions. Yeah, and most of them were volunteering with more than one organization, so they might have different roles depending on what organization they're at. Yeah, but those are great questions. Thank you.
I'm just curious as to your insight on why you think people without education don't volunteer as often or more so than people who are educated.
Okay. That's a great question as well, and I think we need to do some more research to look at that. Dr. Ben Gottlieb at the University of Guelph is currently doing a study that's looking at people in like blue-collar trades positions and volunteering. And I believe, because I just saw him at a conference, and he mentioned that he feels that they're doing lots of other things, like they're doing lots of informal volunteering, not necessarily formal volunteering. So they're doing lots of caregiving and lots of support to neighbors, friends and neighbors in the community, so that it's a time issue potentially. But I think we need to look at that in much more detail, because as the research on the benefits of volunteering, especially the health benefits of volunteering, come out, we're going to need to consider some health promotion of volunteering. If it leads to healthier aging, then we need to be focusing that across everybody, and make sure that people who generally haven't been volunteering in the past, haven't connected with nonprofit organizations as a volunteer, need to be pulled in and made aware of the health benefits of volunteering and given opportunities so that they can volunteer as well.
Did you use a specific definition for volunteering? I noticed your sample wasn't a very ethnically diverse population, and I'm wondering maybe in other non-white cultures, what they might be doing similar things, but not label it as volunteering.
I think that the people who are volunteering, first of all, that the percentage that were diverse in my sample did relate to a similar, if you look at the older population in Canada, it's similar, right? It's similarly diverse, about a third are immigrants to Canada, and that's similar at the Canadian national level. I do sense that some people don't consider what they do as volunteer work, and I did label my study as a study on volunteering during retirement, so that if people didn't consider themselves to be volunteer, then they would have just self-excluded from participating. And sometimes people don't consider what they do is volunteer work, even if they're involved in their religious community, doing things to maintain how procedures and processes and programming in the religious community, they might not consider that to be volunteering. But I use the definition that's commonly used in the literature, that it is giving of your time without remuneration, without any pay. So that's the consistent definition. But it does have the problem of self-selection, that people would say, oh, I'm not a volunteer.
I had one question about the chart that showed your Bravo study and the different groups.
The different
And
aspects?
yes, and one was a team was called VDQ, and I wondered what that stood for.
Okay, that's the role complexity piece. So that's a volunteer demands part of the study, and that looks at the complexity of the volunteer role. That's also a great question. So right now there is a push globally to start to quantify volunteer positions, like to look at the complexity of the role, and it is categorizing volunteer positions consistently with paid work positions that would be done at Human Resources Skills Development Canada, right? So they have a huge classification system of paid work positions, and globally there's a movement that we should be doing this for volunteer positions as well, because of the economic impact of these volunteer positions that isn't really recognized. So they want to do that to connect, to show the economic value, but there also is, which is in our research, the health value from finding out volunteer complexity, volunteer role complexity.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you have an anticipated date for the release of all those study results?
For the completed study?
Yeah, I know you're still recruiting.
Yeah,
so
we're still recruiting. We have roughly 2 more years of funding, so I don't anticipate the final results will come out anytime before then. But there are always conference presentations going on where we present the preliminary findings of the study, and at the Arnova conference, which happened to be in Toronto this year, last month, we presented on some of the benefits of volunteering, along with Dr. Van Gottlieb. He presented on his health benefits that he saw in his study as well. He just conducted a study looking at mostly on Meals on Wheels volunteers and the health benefits that they get from volunteering. And I'm not sure when the next conference is going to be, or if it will be in Toronto, but if you want to give me your contact information, I can certainly let you know. Yeah. Thanks for your interest. Yes, did you have a question? No? Okay. Yes, Susan.
I wondered if you had any kind of advice for someone who is on the cusp, since there's so many people about to be on the cusp or currently on the cusp.
Okay, that's a good question as well, because it is important at a personal level. And I think a lot of people have some kind of idea of what they want to do when they're done, when they retire. And some of them want to travel, do some things for themselves before they enter into a volunteer position, because again, there's a commitment with that, right? But when you're ready to volunteer, I really am an advocate, obviously, for volunteering. So I really believe that it's important to find a position that is a fit with you and what you want, whether it's using your skills or if you want to step out and do something completely new and different. I think it's important to find that match, and I think really through word of mouth, right? You just got to explore and try things. Maybe grab a friend and go out to a nonprofit organization and say, hey, we're here, what can we do? And see if you can find that fit, like the participants in my study did. And it might take a little time, it's a bit of a process, but I have confidence that you'll find that fit. Mm-hmm.
Do you recommend they call the bureau, the volunteer bureau?
Yeah, I think you can call the volunteer bureau. There's a number of ways. If you're not already connected to nonprofit organizations in your local community, then yeah, certainly call the bureau and have them help you to find a match.
Thank you very much.